Welcome to the podcast where we bring you closer to the heart of Falcons Landing, where stories come alive and wisdom is shared. Join us as we invite special guests to share their unique experiences, insights, and memories on a variety of topics that resonate with our community's vibrant spirit. Whether it is tales of adventure, reflections on life, or expert advice on living well, our podcast is your gateway to the rich tapestry of life at Falcons Landing. Tune in, be inspired, and connect with the voices that make our community truly special. Let's embark on this journey together, one story at a time. Welcome to the Falcons Landing podcast. Hello, my name is Alex Hild, your host of the Falcons Landing podcast. In today's episode, we have two very special guests joining us. They are none other than Faiqa Clark from Brightview Senior Living and Heather Suri from Pathways in Aging. Faiqa will be interviewing Heather on care management. So without further ado, let's take a listen in on this wonderful interview segment and hear what they have to say.
Everyone, my name is Faiqa Clark. I'm with Brightview Senior Living. I'm the outreach director, and we're here today to discuss aging life care management with Heather Suri. So Heather, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Faiqa. So I'm Heather Suri. I'm an aging life care professional, and I own a group practice here in Northern Virginia called Pathways in Aging. And I am also heavily involved in our professional association, the Aging Life Care Association, as a past president of the Mid-Atlantic chapter. And I also serve on the professional conduct committee at the national level. And very passionate about aging life care management. And so I'm excited to talk about it with you today because I think a lot of professional partners and people in the community don't know much about it.
Sure, we're super excited. So Heather, tell us about care management.
Yeah, so care management or aging life care management is its own distinct profession. Historically, we've been about half nurses, half social workers. The profession itself has been around about 40 years. We used to be called geriatric care managers. You might be familiar with that term. But the Professional Association rebranded to Aging Life Care Management, I think about 10 years ago, because many of the people that we serve might not be geriatric. We work with people who are stroke survivors in their 50s. Somebody in their 50s doesn't want a geriatric care manager. And many of us, my practice included, work with people across the lifespan or adults with disabilities. So aging life care professionals, even though it's kind of a mouthful, really encompasses the broader spectrum. And essentially, we work as professional advocates. We build teams, help people navigate the healthcare system, do medical care coordination, a lot of crisis intervention. Really, anyone who is struggling with accessing the right healthcare service or resource or care in the community source or resource, we have a lot of deep expertise in everything related to aging.
That's wonderful. So Heather, tell us about a situation where, you have transitioned families into assisted living and how did it work out and what were the challenges and how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah. So we have several different kind of knowledge domains, actually 8 distinct knowledge domains that the Aging Life Care Association recognizes, and housing is one of those domains. So we do help people with placement into senior housing, and that could look like a 55 and over apartment type of situation. It could be a skilled nursing facility or everything in between in terms of independent living, assisted living, memory care. So I think a lot of families approach us when they're not even quite sure what they need, or they think they know what they need, but there's a lot of kind of nuanced differences in those different levels of care. So the first thing we do is really try to educate people about what the different options are, and who's eligible for those different options. We help people really kind of hone in on their individual care needs through assessment, because there might be people who are starting to have cognitive changes, for example. They might even have a dementia diagnosis, but wherever they are in their disease process, they might be more socially appropriate for an assisted living setting, right? And so family maybe was kind of thinking because there's a diagnosis it has to be memory care, but not necessarily. We look at each individual and everything that kind of goes into what they value, what they need, what their budget is, and then help the family craft a short list. So that's what we can do when we get people who are not in crisis. When we have people who are in crisis, it looks a little different because we really, when people are in crisis, it's the timeline can really be shortened. So it maybe is not a matter of folks touring all of these different facilities and getting on waiting lists and moving when it feels right. When we're in a crisis, sometimes we have to move very quickly. And so we're looking at what inventory is available. We've got great relationships with sales professionals in these communities, so we know they keep in touch about what inventory and what rooms are available. And then there's all kinds of different options, from respite to longer stays. So it really depends on the family and the individual and the needs. And we're really great at customizing those plans.
Wonderful. Do you typically recommend respite care for your families or a permanent transition when that situation arrives?
I think that respite is a really interesting tool that we can use for a variety of reasons. One of my favorite ways to use respite is to step down from a skilled nursing facility stay. So maybe we have somebody who's been in the hospital and then they've gone to a skilled nursing facility to do rehab, and they've gotten to the end of their insurance covered, their Medicare covered rehab, but they still aren't feeling confident about going home. Or maybe the way their home is structured still isn't quite safe or appropriate for them, and we need to continue that rehab in an environment that is safe and lower stress, because of course, when you're doing respite in an assisted living community, you have access to great meals and activities and therapy there in-house. So I love doing respite as kind of a step down. And then it also gives people a chance to try it, to see if it feels the right fit. I have a couple of clients who are doing that right now. I'm actually at Brightview. A newer building often has more flexibility to offer respite. And so, that's something that we take advantage of. We really look at the newer buildings in the area for those respite opportunities. But then they're really getting a chance to see what an assisted living lifestyle feels like without that feeling of commitment, of kind of being all in.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that's my favorite way to do respite. Sometimes we do respite when maybe a family caregiver or a caregiving spouse needs a break, needs to attend to their own health needs, needs to go on vacation with their family. So there's lots of different ways that respite can be a tool, but I love plugging it in to that continuum of care. It's a little not a traditional part of that, but I think it should be. It works out well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, how do people pay for the care?
Oh, for care management?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. So most of the time it's out of pocket. Medicare and Medicaid and those traditional insurance products do not pay for what we do. There are some long-term care insurance policies that do have a benefit for care management. So whenever we're working with a new client, the first, it's part of our screening question to ask about long-term care insurance. And then, of course, we really want to scour that policy to see if there is a way to get a benefit for some care management. There are some grant programs in different parts of the country. The one we access most often here is through the Senior Living Foundation for the American Foreign Service. So they have a great grant program for both retired Foreign Service officers or the aging parents of active Foreign Service officers. And of course, in the Northern Virginia area, we have a lot of those families we can serve. And they provide grants for care management assessment and care. But, for the families that don't kind of fall into that bucket, it is an out-of-pocket cost. But I think and every family has to kind of evaluate their budget and their need. But I think, people like us, we're very interested in bringing value to the situation. So when we're initially talking with families, we're ethical providers, and if we can't bring value to the situation, then I'm going to get them connected with somebody who might be a better fit. So an example is if someone comes to me because they're having trouble figuring out how to get their groceries every week. Mm-hmm. Well, if that's the primary pain point, then probably a companion service is going to bring, a much higher value for the cost. But if they really need to have somebody take them to a medical appointment, advocate for them with the doctor, help communicate with other medical specialists, make sure that the other family members understand what's happening, the finding the housing, understanding if somebody needs an estate lawyer or an elder law attorney, understanding if somebody's finances are likely to support them through end of life and how to kind of plan accordingly. Some of those more involved issues, the kind of guidance that aging life care professionals can offer can save people a lot of money down the road and making the right decisions the first time.
Sure. Now, how would you know if someone needs a care manager?
Yeah, I think, families whose solo agers, for sure, people who don't have a wide support system, and need that kind of advocacy and assistance, certainly. People whose adult children might live out of state or just be in the sandwich generation where their adult kids are in the workforce and they have kids at home and they have aging parents and it's all overwhelming. Sometimes we have someone who has a chronic illness and they might have a caregiving spouse who is showing some signs of burnout or not taking care of themselves because of the needs of the spouse. So I think, and then certainly people who are in crisis and trying to navigate the healthcare system. We do a lot with people around cognition. So people who aren't sure if what they're seeing is dementia versus normal aging. Maybe they have know somebody, their partner or a parent who is reluctant to go to a neurologist because they're feeling intimidated by their own changes. So a lot of times we're kind of a non-threatening kind of neutral party who can come in and meet people where they are. We see people at home. We put people at ease. And, I think the most important job that we have is to empower people with really high quality information to make informed decisions for themselves.
Sure.
So our job is to just pour all of that information and resource into people so that they can figure out what's right for them through
That's
their
good to
aging
know,
journey.
yes. And where can you find a care manager?
AgingLifeCare.org is our professional association website. And you can do a zip code search there to find somebody in your area. We have care managers, Aging Life Care managers across the country. And I will say that the Aging Life Care Association, for me and for many of my colleagues, is a really critical organization because it really is what differentiates aging life care professionals from maybe anybody else that might identify as a care manager. Because care manager is not a protected title. So really anybody can kind of hang out a shingle and call themselves a care manager. But members of the Aging Life Care Association, we have to meet pretty rigorous standards for our educational background, for our professional experience. And we also adhere to a standard of practice and a code of ethics that provides some consumer protection and reassurance that we're ethical and that we know what we're doing. And so I really suggest if you're looking for this kind of help that you do that zip code search and you find somebody who's a member.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being a great resource for her and answering all the questions we had. I think this can really benefit our seniors, our families.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thanks, Faiqa.
You're welcome.
This concludes this episode of the Falcons Landing podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel that houses all of our episodes and go follow our Instagram and Facebook to keep up to date on the show and what goes on here at Falcons Landing. Thank you for tuning in and see you next time.